Hi everyone, and welcome to the CNCF Working Group Principals Committee meeting. Please abide by the CNCF Code of Conduct. These sessions are recorded. Cool, so we can start off by just putting in some topics and agenda items for the meeting. We don't have anything at the moment. We will just start by seeing if there are any follow-on or follow-up items from last week. So I know there were 3 action items that came out of last week, which you can probably start with. 2 of those were for you, Scott. The updating of the glossary, fixing the broken link, and revisiting the software system definition.
Yes, so I did that in a pull request that a pull request against Dan's simplification pull request of the single line title of the principles. I didn't want to put that on the agenda because I thought last week it was really productive to go ahead with what we started doing. But yeah, that's my update. Is I'll go ahead and send you the PR.
Cool.
I just don't want to be I don't want to distract us like too much, but yeah, those are action items. So here we go.
Okay. We still don't have any other topics or action items for this meeting.
Sorry, almost there with the link. I'm just going to drop it in the comments. Do you feel like, Moshe, what do you think, and I guess team, what do you think about continuing what we did last week with going through the
glossary?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can.
Commits. Yeah, basically going through the old commits and seeing what was valuable.
Okay. We're going through all of the documents, or all of the current.
Well, let's see here. I think what we did last time was during this portion, Dan turned it over to my screen share, but it doesn't have to be that. It could be.
Yeah, if you want to screen share, that's cool.
Okay, I don't mind.
So Scott.
Yes.
So what was the follow-up from the discussion last week?
You mean about the simplification PR?
Yeah.
Okay, so I made one. I might have gone a little overboard because there was another piece of information that it was one other additional thing that I did was switch the order of propose switching the order of 2 of the principles because of feedback from oh my gosh, who was it? Not Brian Grant. I'm sorry. I am completely spacing out right now. on who it was that I know him, but my mind is just drawing a blank. Sorry, give me a second here. I may have written it down.
Okay, so I thought that last week we were discussing something that was different from the core principle statement.
Yeah, we were. It's very hard for me not to want to get bogged down in this. I'm trying not to. So I just put a note, just for future ref, I just put a note in the doc on that old agenda item so we can look at that. We don't have to do that on this call. Thanks, Moshe. I guess I'll share my screen. Maybe that will help. I think what I know that we did was we were going through the files. Ultimately, excuse me.
Yeah, I joined quite late last week, so I didn't quite get all the context of, but it seemed like there was a lot of discussion and a lot of, I was just wondering about the follow-up to that, or if it had happened yet.
My screen's just giving me a little bit of trouble here. My redirect here is giving me a little bit of trouble. Once I get to it, I'll share my screen. I guess this is browser memory. Give me 1 second here. Well, in any case, for now, to answer your question, there is the link to the old PR. What we did. Oh, here we go. It's finally loaded for me. Okay, I'll go ahead and share my screen, Mouse. Just let me know when I should stop. I don't want to. So basically what we did was we went through these, we went through the changed files here. We did a quick review of what the files were that we wanted to review. And then let me just go through the we have a list of a process that we wanted to go through. I think that was the 30th. So we basically, this is what we basically did in part before we at first had the discussion, Chris, about simple. There was we discussed Dan's PR to just simplify the principle's the style of how each principle is described, where
Yeah.
essentially we were just saying the principle of, and feedback. One of the big points of feedback was that felt fairly redundant, and it seemed like nobody really strongly disagreed with that. But it's still a PR. It's not like there's any group decision made. It's just a pull request. I made a pull request on his in order to take what we discussed and put it into form. So it's up to him, I think, to merge that into his PR and see if, and then it's up to the rest of the group to see if they like that PR. I think that's
okay. Yeah, he changed it to use, right? Use.
Yeah, and ultimately what I did was update it to. Oops, excuse me. Sorry. Update it to go back to. I'm really sorry, folks. I feel like I'm really failing hard at.
Are we working in the GitOps working group or the documents repo?
We were working in the documents repo. I thought I had linked the pull request, but I guess I didn't. So this is the pull request that Dan started. This was the discussion that was on it. There were some, I had summarized like what it sounded like folks were saying, that there were different ways of restating the style of the initial sentence. You know, either as just removing the principle of over and over. But then the question was, how were we going to deal with that? Either leave it as is, just without that word, or format them as axioms, which is someone's suggestion. And then the other was to format them as commands. And then there were, Jesse gave a couple of, William, Jesse, Robert gave some suggestions. And then last meeting, we discussed them. So based on those discussions, everybody seemed happy with the axiomatic approach. So based on that, I made a PR, not against main, but against the pull request branch and Dan's pull request. It could be a standalone PR, but like why? So, and all it does is it ultimately did those things, and it proposed moving the glossary, the notes to glossary items. And so that's something I'd like, basically, I just want to link it here. And that's something I'd like your feedback on, and group. I hope that's a decent summary. Oh, thanks, Chris. Yeah. So that was Dan's PR, and then this other one is the pull request against that, which makes some proposed changes. It also addresses the last point in, excuse me. Yeah, it also addressed the last point that that Dan received feedback on earlier, which is that principle 4 seemed redundant, or completely redundant. We knew that, but there was also another goal for it, if I understood correctly, which was that we really do want people to operate this, like humans to operate the system through declaration changes, not just the fact that declarations should exist, or that reconcilers should be reconciling them, but that this is actually how humans tell the reconcilers what to do, or the software agents to do. So the suggestion here was to just swap 3 and 4. So instead of it just simply saying it should follow all these principles, it took a version of what people said before and just simply says that, and then it just swapped exactly the order. That was the only real difference there. Besides moving the notes, we had 3 notes, and those were, one was moved to a principle in order to say that, and one was moved, and the other 2 were moved to glossary items. So I just wanted to get people's feedback, not necessarily right now because it's a bit to read through, but that's just the summary. So for example, where was the last one that Moshe really wanted here?
So the system state, yeah, a better glossary item for system state.
Right.
Or what a system or software system means.
Right. I didn't do that in this, but that's something that we can definitely do. And I did update the state store because there was a broken link in it. So I had to describe what we intended with that broken link. And that's all I really did. There wasn't anything really special that I changed there. And again, I haven't changed anything. This is just a request against another pull request. So it's very, very much in the proposal stage for the group. And the other note was, I'm so sorry, the other note was, whether the differences could be due to actual state drifting from the desired state or the desired state changing intentionally. I realized we had never defined drift. So I just added what I believe we mean by drift, and I'd like people's feedback on that too. And then ultimately the description about regular operations in the initial pull request from Breeze that we had worked on a while back, we'd referred to it as break glass. I think other people had called it an emergency break. I don't know that there was any consensus on what it should be called, but ultimately some place to describe, that there are scenarios for, we fully expect there to be scenarios where there should be a temporary suspension of GitOps principles. That's really it. I hope that helps to summarize it. I didn't want to take up too much time with this meeting with that one.
Okay, so I've compiled a list of, I think, to-do items that we need to get through, and we can probably just start by working on one of them. So it should be under if you go up a bit, the current meeting. Yeah, so I've added a bunch in there. So we've reviewed the rational document, and we say that it needs to be reworked into a benefits document. I don't know if we all agree on that. The special precautions for GitOps, we need to, we removed the link, but I think we still need to actually put a document or a glossary item for what a GitOps Git repo looks like, and then as well as work on the definitions of state, software system, and break glass. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think so. I'm just kind of looking back at, so our process before was just simply to go through those files and see which pieces needed to be changed based on what we ran into. And I think that these are all the notes about that. Oh, I guess it was Brian Grant's feedback. I was like really trying to remember. Was it Brian Grant? Yeah. These are some of the pieces of feedback that he had. It's not something we need to really process a lot right now, but we discussed that last week.
So we probably should have an action item, I think, for discussing that item, or whether to address it or not. I think it was the data aspect that I think people agreed to, but we didn't agree on a step to take in either updating the principle or not.
Well, what do you all think? Would you rather, motion gang, would you rather continue kind of sifting through, or sifting through those other the other documents from this old pull request, or do you think it would be worth looking?
Well, what are the other documents in there? So we've completed the rationale in terms of a first pass. What other documents need a first pass?
That is a good question. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there are none.
Yeah, it seems to me, looking at this, and these have been out here for several weeks now, those PRs and the comments, we basically need a stake in the ground, or at least I do, because I'm not sure at this point where it's all sitting. I don't know who's responsible for taking the comments and suggestions and putting another stake in the ground to say, oh, here's one that seems to summarize things. Is it the owner of the PR who's it's their job to go through and look at the comments and then adjust the PR for round 2? Or how does this work? Because it seems to not be closing.
Yeah, that was actually on me, and that's what this pull request is, pull number 12. I put the things that
Maybe it makes sense to break out the new glossary definitions into new PRs, and then just commit the axiom change, and then the state still fixes. So like I think we can do incremental changes and work on them individually, rather than trying simplifying it in one big bang.
Yeah. I can do that right now. That would be helpful. We can just roll with it together on screen. If that's.
Yep.
What do you think?
Yep.
Okay, cool. How's my font size?
It's good. Oh, for me, it's good.
You want me to bump it up at all? Okay. That's probably good. Okay. Okay, cool.
One comment for number one, I would say is described declaratively.
Yeah, we seem to have dropped the verbs.
It just reads fairly strange without a verb in there.
Got it. Okay. Let me start with main again. Just trying to make it clear there's nothing weird going on. Okay, cool. Head is at main. Oh, you know what? I can, I realize I'm only sharing my browser. I actually was on a terminal here. How's my font on this terminal?
It's fine.
Can you see the terminal? Okay. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and just open up VS Code. All right. Okay, so yeah. One thing at a time, right?
The option B comment was a system's desired state must be declarative.
Right, and if we were using is that where we said we wanted to be?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago, I think we had talked about, we like the axioms, but maybe not the musts.
Right, because then we're just going between musts and shoulds and all. Okay. All right, so you're right. In this PR, I did not put the word is. Okay. And then I want to see how you feel about that without changing any order yet, just simply.
Is.
So this is
important.
really, yeah, is automate.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, so that's one change. Let me go ahead and make that check out. Oops. The say
That declaration changes. I don't know. It sounds a little bit weird to me. Declaration change history and system operation is only through declaration change.
Yeah, so
I was about to comment on that. I think it's a little odd as well.
Okay, what was it before? The principle of declarative desire. Okay, sorry. Principle of operations through declaration. Here is
So I think it should be system operation is only through declarative change, and declarative changes are stored as immutable versions.
right, and that's principle 2.
Declarative changes.
Yeah, declarative changes are stored as immutable
So-
versions.
For number
I
2,
think
it's the
the
same
his-
thing.
Oh, I
Yeah.
see, I see. Instead of declaration. I see, okay, I see.
So declarative changes. Yeah.
Yep, that's good.
I see. Okay, got it.
Before still a little clunky. I mean,
I
I
think
just want to
for-
say
Yeah.
this out loud. I feel like we're reworking stuff like repeatedly, and maybe this is what you were saying, Chris. Like we got to draw a line in the sand.
Yeah.
That one's a little clunky. I think there were like several proposals.
Yeah.
Um,
The one I liked was mutating
yeah,
the declared state, and I think personally I think that drives that point home.
Oh, what was it again? Let's take a look.
Yeah, there was a suggestion. I think it was by William that I really liked. Well, there was a few just suggestions that I like. I'm just not.
Yeah.
I'm just picking one
yeah.
out.
I think
but-
I used mutation, and then I think he refined it a little bit.
I put the
Yeah.
word change because that's really the same thing, but we can use the word mutation.
Yeah.
You put a serious preference. I think the last time we were just saying we wanted to make these readable by folks.
Yeah, gotcha.
Change is fine.
I was
But
just
it's, I mean, you could swap that out. I
okay.
think we had used initiated as well, which I'm not sure we had quorum on. Like I think I had said all operations are initiated through declarative mutation or declaration mutations, which we didn't like, but there were pieces of it that we were talking through.
Yeah. Right.
Maybe we can take
So,
those in spirit and just rework them.
I mean, there is a there is some, if you go down to William's suggestion there is something in me that likes the 2 words and then the colon. Somehow, I don't know what you folks think, but that form just kind of speaks to me. But I'm not willing to go change what we have a ton just to get there.
Yeah, I think what we said last time, not that we have to stick with that exactly, is that it seemed that like right now, like one proposal by Dan was to try to like reduce this so we didn't even have 2 levels. And the idea of the first sentence was just to make it as simple as possible as an introduction. Or sorry, as a memorizable statement that still is pretty intact. And then adding the additional words seemed like 3 different levels of quick summary.
See, like number 4 there to me really says exactly what it should say.
Yeah,
Maybe an alternative is just to actually bold the keywords there.
yeah. Perhaps, right? So
Should this just be like, are we just stuck on a semantic here? Like, should this just be like a different, like, should we just reword this? Because we know what we're saying here, right? Like, all the changes to the system should come through GitOps. That's what we're saying. Like, you can't optionally use it. Is that the thrust of number 4?
I think so, and that's why I had actually
Yeah.
suggested just swapping the order of 3 and 4, because when we were discussing, you know, before, it seemed like kind of the subtext of number 4 just being more of a punctuation, like, and we really mean it. That's not even 100% accurate, because if we did run, well, I was really trying to think of what Brian's feedback. And I think we could just remove number 4, but then we wouldn't just be removing the "we really mean it" kind of thrust or the punctuation. We'd be removing the point that this is how humans operate with the system. You know, we describe that the state is the system's desired state is described declaratively. That those declarations should be stored in version control, right, as immutable and so on. And we say that the software agent should be drawing from that. But what we don't actually say here is that's how humans tell the software agents what to do, you know? Like this is the mechanism through which they tell them how to do it. So,
No,
so it seems to me that if we swap the order of them, it would be it kind of flows, but that was just a thought I had. I hadn't talked it out with the group at all.
So what happens if we just update 3 to be system and human operation is only through declarative changes?
I don't think I understand.
So system op, yeah. So if we're trying to highlight the fact that humans interact in this way, why don't we just put it in there?
Well, just because we had already done that in number 1.
Moshe, I think you're getting to the point that I was trying to make, or you're speaking to it. I don't think we're really talking about system operation here. I guess that's my point. I think what we're trying to say is all changes to actual state must be induced by changes to the desired state, right? That's really what we're trying to say. And I'm trying to specifically use words we're not using here to kind of up level it so we don't get stuck in the weeds. That's why I like 4 in 4's place.
Yeah.
Because it is the underlying thing. It's like, and by the way, you have to do all these things. Sorry, Christian, were you going to say something?
Well, that was to your point, actually, is like maybe, I don't know, words are hard, right? We're trying to choose the right words to say what we mean. Because to me, 4 kind of states like how you interface, right? Like interfacing with the system is done by mutating or changing the declared, your stored declared, whatever, right? Your declaration essentially. And which is why I also like it at 4, right? It as well is that, it kind of brings it back to where, you'll get to, 1, 2, and 3, but without 4, operating it the same way via 1, 2, 3, it's not GitOps. So,
yeah, okay.
But putting that in like in a concise, I guess we're all struggling with it. I'm struggling with how to put that in such a way that it makes sense to everyone.
I think I was just going to say, I think there's a logic to the way it was originally. So one, as you're saying, the state is always declarative, right? The entire state of your system is declared. Second says, oh, that declared thing is stored in a way that you can see the different versions, right? And there's a reason for that. So that means you can always see changes from one version to the next. So you know how your state has changed. The third one says, okay, now you have your state in this declarative form. How does it get applied to the system? And that says, okay, it's going to be through this continuous reconciliation process by some agent, right? And then 4 basically says, this is how you manage your system. There is no other way, right? And I think that's important because some folks might say, oh, we can still do other stuff over here. So I think the flow and the logic of those 4 actually made sense in their original, the way they were lined up.
Got you. Okay.
Yeah, I agree there as well.
Okay. Okay.
So maybe that last one, so operations is through, maybe we just need to add it there, is only through declarative changes. I think that that's right. Like, I think it is simple enough.
I think I really like the sentence under it more than the principle itself. And I think I'm getting hung up on system operation.
Oh, okay.
Right, like, so the
So
only
maybe-
mechanism through which the system is intentionally operated on is through these principles. Like, I think I think what I was trying to do is up, level this up. I think what we're really trying to say is that the actual state is only changed through versioned declarative changes to the desired state. Right? We just need a simpler way to say that.
Maybe something like the only interface to change is through these principles.
That was the "we really mean it" version, which
Yeah.
I think some of us did like.
Well,
think
I liked it too. I
Sorry.
mean, I think I initially proposed that because we were really trying to rehash the other, we had like 18 different ways of rehashing the other like principles.
so in a vacuum,
from my suggestion there.
In a vacuum, it is important. It is a fourth principle, right? You could say, you're using declarative configuration, using version control, and you have automation to drive reconciliation. And now I'm just going to SSH in and change some stuff, and I'm going to thrash the system. I mean, it's still GitOps, but like one of the principles is don't do that, right? And that's kind of what we're saying. I mean, if you have continuous reconciliation, if you have an automation, you have agents in place that will continuously reconcile the system's actual state back to the desired state, then you can SSH in and fiddle all the bits you want, and they're just going to get reverted, right? If you're following 1, 2, 3. I think number 4 is there really is a conceptual principle to say that's not really how you're supposed to do this.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why I keep coming back to thinking that it is important, and I think that it's best served in position 4.
Okay, makes sense. I
Maybe-
get that from the reordering thing, but how do you feel about making it more explicit again? And I'm really mainly responding to Brian Grant's feedback.
Yeah.
So
can you
why
change-
don't we remove it as a principle entirely and just change it to a footnote? And that last sentence is a footnote, and you remove the title, and you have principles 1, 2, and 3 plus 1 footnote.
I think
that's probably
conceptually
what
it's
Brian
really,
was saying. Yeah.
I think conceptually it's really important. I think this 4th principle is really important conceptually.
Yeah, me too. I agree.
And I think I like what this says. I don't like the word operation.
Okay.
The only mechanism through which the system is intentionally changed
What did it say? Sorry.
is through version mutation, like that. I mean, because we're really talking about change, right? System changes.
So how would we change? How would we make operations through declaration an axiom?
Can we hit the sentence first?
Well,
Really
see,
quick?
sorry to interrupt. Up above in 1, we say system desired state. We can say in 4, system state changes only through mutating declaration or something like that.
So
At least highlight the
all-
versioning aspect of it. So that the system state changes, or the system, the definition of the desired state, whatever it is, it needs to be versioned such that it comply with number 2. So it's trying to keep those 2 in sync as well.
Yeah. So I think that's why. Okay. Declarative
Maybe
changes, right? Those are the version. Those are the changes to the versions.
I was
So
sort
what
of doing
about-
I was trying to organize this a little bit by starting with the sentence because it's more words. Can
Okay.
we just do that real quick and make sure that
Quicker?
we're all on like we all agree? So I feel like we could just change operated to changed,
Oh, I see.
right?
Yeah.
And then it might be simpler to squish it down into less words if we do this. And then
Yeah,
view
so-
version mutation is through change, is through modification of the desired state. Just trying to simplify the language.
Or it can be update through update of the desired state. Is through
I think-
versioned updates of.
Yeah. Ultimately, if we're talking about versions, they're always new versions, right?
Yeah, and I think update
uh,
can get confused with upgrade, and people can get
Yes.
weird with it.
I agree with that.
As DevOps people, we can absolutely agree with that, right?
Yeah.
What do you think about this then? Okay, so changing what you said.
Yeah,
briefly,
yeah.
the only mechanism through which the system is intentionally changed, I honestly think that makes a lot of sense, is through new versions of the desired state declarations.
Rollback,
I think this is close enough.
rollback.
What about just removing the declarations at the end? So through new versions of the desired state.
Which brings me back to thinking modification is the right thing again. I mean, if you roll back, you're not going to a new version, but you change the actual state.
Is rollback? I'm gonna say a dumb question. Is
No, you're
rollback?
It's
Is
a good
rollback
question.
really roll forward? Right?
Yeah,
Don't you
I
roll
think it
back by
is, yeah.
rolling forward?
Is it?
And that's still yeah.
In GitOps, I think it is, and even if we're talking
Okay.
about saying using a tool like Helm, like where we're actually specifying the declarations of how we want Helm to operate, and Helm's is storing revisions of its releases inside of the cluster. A rollback there would be more of a break glass scenario. We'd be temporarily suspending GitOps principles to do so. You'd
Like
always
the
roll
equivalent
forward.
of, it's
in
like the
GitOps.
equivalent of like editing your hash tree in your Git repo. Like, just don't do that. I love
Yeah.
that. So do we agree we should drop declarations? I think most just suggested that.
I personally think that makes sense. Does anybody hate the? Basically, are we saying that like when we're describing desired state, we're defining desired state as a declaration, right?
Well, I mean, 1, 2, and 3
Yeah.
are still in play. These are aggregate. These are check all boxes, right? So the
And
desired
then,
state
so what you,
is declarative.
Yeah,
The
that's right.
declarative changes are immutable.
Yep.
Yeah.
so that, and then you can make number 4 changes only through declaration.
That would that work? I guess it would. Changes only through, oh, instead of declarative changes only through declaration.
Oh, so what if we abstract this conceptually? Because we're looking for something that's catchier, right?
Yeah.
So what if this is like, I'm thinking about something where we talk about changes in, I like the correlation that changes in the actual state are tied to changes in desired state.
Changes
I
is
want-
only by number 2.
Yeah, we mean it. No, but like as a standalone thing, I'm trying to make it not too many words, but like the system is, changes in the, yeah. What did I just say, Christian? You nodded. It sounded good.
Now you got my gears thinking. No, this is
Or changes only through modification of desired state.
Yeah, actual state changes only through modification of desired state.
It's the modification against immutable.
Just write it down first.
Right, change state.
Before we-
State change.
before we lose it.
Actual
Well,
state change.
Okay, I'll just write it
Well,
down.
So
first.
I wouldn't, I would take the actual state out, so all change. Like people will take actual state and then say, no, it's not actual state, it's a different thing that we're changing.
Desired state
That,
change.
so yeah, now we can nitpick it, but like that's
Yeah.
the idea. I think
Okay, that's
what
the
was in
idea.
my
Now we
mind.
can nitpick it. Okay, so here it didn't bother us saying state reconciliation is automated. We don't think that people are talking about your desired state here.
Yep.
We're talking about the state of the system, right? And that the system's desired state is described declaratively.
Except that we're not duplicating the word. So we say actual state is
Yeah, what do you-
changing desired state. So
Yeah, what do
we're
we-
changing the desired state. We haven't defined actual state anyway.
Yeah, we don't have actual state because if you think of a reconciliation cycle on Kubernetes, you are not changing how many replicas are there of a particular pod. You are changing the desired number of replicas.
Yep.
So the actual change happened by the reconciliation cycle.
Right, and that's the actual state terminology, which might be now stale, was to reflect sort of your running state,
Yeah. I
which
mean,
we could just refer to as state. I agree with Moshe. I think we could just call that state.
Yeah, I was gonna agree with Moshe. Like, what do we gain by I'm talking specifically on number 4. What do we gain by having actual there versus
Yep.
that's a good
right?
point.
Like,
No, I
Right,
think
like-
state.
because if we
state-
take it out,
Yeah.
the meaning's
Yeah.
still there.
Yep.
So even in number 3, that's the only time we use actual state. Should we simply say there, would it still work here? Software agents continuously and automatically compare a system state to its desired state. I think it does, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it does.
I think you're right.
And then if the
So-
state and desired states differ,
Yeah, the second sentence there,
Oh, wait, sorry, second sentence.
Scott. Yeah, if the actual.
Sorry,
On
my
number 3.
bad. Let me,
It's okay.
if the
That's
what?
okay. So the
Oh,
second
it's the-
sentence under number 3 is, yes, if the state.
Yeah.
If the state and desired states differ.
Yeah,
If we're dropping actual. Do we not actually define actual anywhere? Is that what you were saying?
yeah, I think that's what Moshe was saying, right? We didn't really give a definition for that because maybe we didn't because it's kind of self-evident.
We can say current state, desired state, current.
I can see why initially, because I think this goes back to like 2017 or 18 or whatever. And I can see why they used actual. Like to absolutely specify that there's 2 different states. There's the actual state or the running state or the
Yeah.
proven state, or however you want to look at it, versus your desired state. Like I can see that. So basically the question here is, are we okay with every reference to state indicating the actual state of your running system? And then a desired state is always called out as desired state. So
Should we
that's really
define that?
the question.
Should we include that then in the definition?
Right. Like,
Maybe
is
we
that
should.
is
The
that the other
glossary.
way is to, or I
so
mean,
we
I
could
guess
have
the,
state. So we can define state and define desired state.
now I'm wondering if there's a benefit to that versus actual or running. I mean, why
Well,
current?
running or current, running or current. I think actual needs definition.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
in the, I mean, it's an okay use of the term, like actualized means, right? So the actual state is basically is what we're talking about.
Maybe they seem synonymous, but I don't have a personal preference between actual and running personally.
And
I
or
feel-
current,
Current
I think
I
might
prefer
be more
current.
appropriate because
Yeah.
Does your desired state have a current state? Yes, it does. That's the problem with this. That's why actual is
Mm.
probably the only correct
Oh.
term to use, because it's the actualized state of your desired state
Yeah.
at the current point in time.
yeah, it's the realization
God.
of the state. Okay, yeah.
I'm going out my
Yeah.
window. This is ridiculous. But yeah, I think that's right. I think we actually want to bring actual back to life. here,
Actual back, yeah.
but define it. Which is that's as much of a valid call out as anything else, right? We're using it without defining it.
That makes
yeah,
sense.
so, but I agree with that. But then I think in 4, you wouldn't go actual state. There, it's state changes is only through changing desired state.
I do.
Because the actual state changes, it doesn't, it sounds weird. Like actual is an actualization of something. Like you don't change the actualization, you change the desire. So like, I don't know, maybe, I don't know.
So
No,
let-
you're right. There's something weird there.
Yeah,
let me put an example and see if that will fit there. So you know that we can have a desired state for something that does auto scaling. So, and the desired state is the ability to do the auto scaling. When that is changing, it is not modifying that definition. So how will that type of use case fit in that principle, or how can we phrase the principle to cover those use cases?
I think that it's implied because, so for example, committing an auto scaling configuration is the desired state, and the actual state of adding and removing nodes, that implementation is within the bounds of that desired state. It's within the definition, versus actually having like a cluster API spec that says, give me this node, right? It's here's an abstraction, live within the bounds of this abstraction.
I agree, but I think we should define that. So you actually have an actualized state, which is replicas equals 2, a desired state, and something in between that says we've defined the auto scaling parameters, and the auto scaling parameters match the desired state parameters, but there's an actualization of that scaling that changes, and it changes without declaration.
That's the same as the replicas though, right? Scaling replicas.
Well, so if you have replicas that is a considered state, so the number of replicas is state, right? And we have a desired state that says replicas must be within min and max, but you're now changing the state of the system, but you're not doing it directly, you're doing it indirectly.
Yeah, yeah.
But
I think
there
it's-
is a state change. There is a
Yep.
state change that occurs there.
Could you go
Yeah.
back to your place where you were editing?
So, oh, sorry, my bad. Yes.
So go up to the 4.
Okay.
So number 1 is the system's desired state is described declaratively. All right, that makes sense. You're going to declare and then second says that the I would say that state changes are state declarations are stored as immutable versions. So what I'm trying to get here is that basically the declarations are your manifests, right? And so the first one says you are going to describe your system in these manifest files. All right, you're going to store them in a system that can have immutable versioning. You're going to reconcile those with agents automatically and continuously. And then 4 then becomes, state change happens through, modification of state declarations or something like that, right? And that's what I think we all want, is that you have to go change the declaration files if you want to change the state of your system. Does that logic resonate?
But I think we need to scope it down. So desired state changes happen only through changing the desired declaration. Because the state can change. It's just not the state that we care about.
Sure, desired state makes sense, yeah.
So are we?
Well, so in which case change happens only through intentional change only happens through changing desired state.
Yeah.
That's what that says, right?
Yes. And so I think like this is
So
super interesting. We're wondering if we can pare down the specifics of saying actual state versus desired state, or whether or not actual state is a really good word, or if we can just simply use the word state for that.
in
Yeah,
number 4,
I think so.
Right.
I think we can have intentional state. So intentional state changes happen only through changes to desired state.
Well, I mean, if you want that, Moshe, I think that I see what you're going to. For 4, it could be then that desired state change. That of course is the intentional change, right? Desired state change happens only through changing the state declarations.
Except that sounds a little bit weird.
I'm also confused now about, so are we using, on one hand, we wanted to use the desired state as synonymous with the desired state declarations. So
Yep.
we're essentially using desired state as a shorthand for the declarations where we're storing what we desire our actual system state to be. Right, we're using that, we even defined it down here. That's what we're describing as desired state is all those declarations that describe the system.
I agree with that.
So
then
we're saying
the
that,
end of that,
Yeah.
so the end of that sentence would be changes only happen through changing desired state, only via desired state. And then the question is it state change? Is it actual state, or is it intentional change?
So what about just changes to desired state happens only through changing the state declaration? I mean, what?
But we're saying it's the same thing. So it's change only happens via changes to the desired state via the desired state.
So I think
Right,
that the
yes,
key
yes.
point here is that it's the declarations that have to change. I think that's the key. You have to go in and edit the damn file if you want your system to change. I think
But-
everything else is okay, but you
but-
have to say that you have to change the file.
right. So I
But
was
what we
thinking
are
maybe-
saying is those files are the desired state.
Right, and so what change, and so what are we saying can only change, should only be, what changes should only actually happen through us changing these declarations, like you're saying, Chris, like my thought was that we're back to principle 1 where we're talking about the system's the system's actual state, right? We're talking about actually changing the system itself, like operating on the system. I think we wanted to change the word operating on the system because that sounded weird to people.
So I think intentional change happens only through changing desired state.
I mean, let's just
Or
for a second.
via the intentional change. So it's the intentional change. Like if you do something on the system, then you must do it via the desired state.
Yeah. Is that not the same as system changes?
No, because the system state is different. So you can have multiple levels of state. We have the desired state, we have an actualized state where replicas equals 2, and that's a change. But it's not our intentional change, it's a system change. As a human operator, I'm intentionally changing the scaling parameters. I'm not intentionally changing replicas.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yes. Okay. So I don't disagree with this at all. Do these sound like do these sound slightly better than what we had before? Is the question. So nothing else has changed here in this. There's a proposal to add actual state down there, but I think we're not doing that right now, right? Well, we're not looking at that at the moment. We're looking at
I think we have run out of time and people.
Oh, we have. Oh, okay. Sorry about that, folks.
Yeah, well, folks. Yeah, so I think maybe we can just update the PR with it as is and invite comment.
That sounds good. Okay, so yeah, I'll actually make a new PR. Just point to. Okay, let me stop sharing my screen. Action items for me, new PR. Point to the old PRs, and we'll comment there.
Cool.
Sounds good. Thanks both.
Thanks, Mosh. Thanks, Chris.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.